A successful office products dealer today is doing 75 to 80% of their business through their website, hugely focused on e-com and the efficiencies around it. The office products dealers that are growing are by finding other things to sell and new people to sell them to.
You work with distribution today at ECI. You guys serve a lot of other markets, but the adoption of e-commerce is not that high compared to the office supply industry. Do you see that changing?
It's certainly significantly lower. I'm having the same types of conversations with these distributors that I was having with office products distributors 15 to 20 years ago. If you can get a customer shopping on your site, you end up with larger average order sizes. You end up with better GP on those orders. You end up with a lower return rate. AI can take over repetitive tasks, but how do you leverage AI to make your humans more efficient? How do you look at that data, gather insights, and provide those insights to your employees to take action on? And it's those actionable insights that are really, I think, what are exciting as we look at different ways of leveraging AI.
I'm Karthik Chidambaram, founder and CEO of DCCAP, an ERP-first integration platform built for distributors and manufacturers. On the Driven by DCCAP podcast, I sit down with industry leaders, innovators, and change makers to explore what's driving success in distribution, manufacturing, technology, and the industry as a whole. Real conversations, real insights. You don't want to miss this.
Before most distributors even heard the word e-commerce, Paul Gatens was already building it. Starting his career in the paper industry before spending 23 years at SP Richards, Paul has had a front row seat to digital transformation in the industry since the early 2000s. Now, as VP of Global Sales at ECI Software Solutions, he's bringing that perspective to a new generation of distributors who are asking the same questions he's been answering for decades. Where exactly distributors are falling behind on e-commerce and how AI is starting to close that gap.
Paul Gatens. Paul, I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation. First off, we enjoy working with ECI. Thank you and appreciate the partnership. Love working with you and your team. We also met with JC yesterday, so love working with him as well. So thanks for the partnership.
Absolutely. We couldn't be happier working together with you guys, executing the distributors where we don't, we aren't their ERP, and we need a partner like yourself to integrate to, one of the other platforms like Profit 21 and others. And your team's phenomenal to work with. Couldn't be happier with partnership as well.
ECI is into multiple verticals. You guys do a lot of different businesses, and you are focused on the e-commerce end of things with Evolution X, the platform. Is that correct?
It's one of the platforms that I handle. I'm VP of sales for our entire distribution division. We've got ERP software that services primarily the office products industry. And then Evolution X is our e-commerce platform for all distribution. And then we also have a product called Chameleon that is a product in the office furniture. And it's a product in the office furniture industry and also in job management.
I love the story. You talked about office products, and I love the story of how you even got into ECI. You spent a great amount of time, almost like 25 plus years with SP Richards, and you were a customer of ECI then.
Yeah, it was interesting. So, I started at SP Richards as director of ecommerce, and SP at that time was one of the two major wholesalers of office supplies in the U.S. And so providing product content to office products resellers and working with the system providers that executed their e-commerce systems for them, managed the relationship with all of the different systems providers, including ECI. And it's funny, I started working with ECI even before ECI was a company. The two people that founded ECI, Ron Books and Paula Jagaman, were running onlineofficesupplies.com, at one of the early .com selling office supplies online in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they realized they'd built a software that was good platform and wanted to provide that to office products dealers as potentially their e-com software. They created a business out of that and then ended up acquiring DDMS, the largest ERP system in the office products industry. And that was sort of the genesis of what became ECI. And so managing our SP's relationship with ECI through their growth. And it's interesting that, a company that started in the world of office product software, the distribution division is now the smallest division within ECI as they got acquired by private equity and grew into a lot of other industries, manufacturing, lumber and building materials, residential home construction, field service software, going from just being US based only to being worldwide. It's been fun watching that company grow over the years and managing that relationship from the outside and now being on the inside.
And you also have operations in the UK. You guys are pretty big in the UK.
We are. We acquired multiple softwares over in the UK. Again, primarily starting in the office products industry. And so we're very heavy over there. Own a couple of ERP systems in addition to Evolution X actually started over there. ES Tech, the company that developed it, that ECI acquired about 4 years ago, was originally out of Ireland and then grew into the UK and then over to the US.
Since you spent a lot of time in the office supply industry, how is the office supply industry doing today?
It's interesting as I look at as we're trying to grow e-commerce into a lot of other distribution verticals, the office products industry, and maybe it's primarily because it's so white collar oriented, adopted e-com very early. And, a successful office products dealer today is doing 75 to 80% of their business through their website, hugely focused on e-com and the efficiencies around it. But the industry as a whole has certainly had its struggles post-COVID, recovering from, the world going remote or hybrid. You look at the number of people in a white collar office building today is 50% of what it was in 2019. And folks at the house aren't printing things on a sheet of paper. And so much of the demand keys off of that printing not happening compared to what somebody would do if they're in a white collar office printing on a network printer. If you don't print something on a sheet of paper, you're not stapling it, paper clipping it, putting a Post-it note on it, putting it in a file folder, a 3-ring binder, in a bookcase or a file cabinet. Everything flows off of not only was paper and ink the two biggest product categories, now all of those other things aren't happening either. And so the office products dealers that are growing are by finding other things to sell and new people to sell them to, whether it's growing into janitorial and sanitation, it's growing into IT and consumer electronic supplies, growing into MRO equipment, getting off of the carpeted side of the office into the concrete side of the back of the office is really where folks are being successful. Been a lot of consolidation in the dealer community and consolidation on the wholesale side. There's now only one major wholesaler of office products in the U.S. The other competitor at S.P. Richards Ascendant exited the market in Q4 of last year, or exited the office supply side of the market in Q4 of last year. And now we're seeing the exact same thing happening right now over in the UK. Exertis is in the process of being acquired by Val. And so, in both markets, we've now got one dominant wholesale vendor, and the dealers really having to evolve their thought process of, do they get back into acquiring product direct from manufacturers? Do they get back into stocking a much greater percentage of what they sell versus buying through wholesale? So it's definitely a very evolving industry at the moment.
Yeah, if you don't print, it takes a hit.
Absolutely. And you can't make that up, selling flash drives.
Totally. Since you worked in the office supply industry and you talked about e-commerce being adopted, and the adoption for e-com was definitely good for office supplies, but then you work with distribution today at ECI, you work with electrical distribution, plumbing, you guys serve a lot of other markets. But the adoption of e-commerce is not that high compared to the office supply industry. Why do you see that is, and do you see that changing?
Well, it's interesting. It's certainly significantly lower. I think primarily ties to, they're dealing with a more blue collar customer clientele that's not sitting in an office in front of a computer all of the time, able to shop in that type of fashion. But it's fun because I'm having the same types of conversations with these distributors that I was having with office products distributors 15 to 20 years ago. So it's been kind of fun going back to having the conversations around the efficiencies of, having your customers pay their bills online, having your customers key in their own orders, which eliminates an order entry point and an error point for orders. If you can get a customer shopping on your site, you end up with larger average order sizes. You end up with better GP on those orders. You end up with a lower return rate on those orders. And getting distributors to understand and getting their sales force to understand, that they're not reducing their value by having customers buy, just gives them an ability to provide value in a different way and to expand, the things that those resources can be doing to generate more business where they were just chasing orders, inputting orders previously.
And, for e-com as well, the data becomes a very, very critical component. And how are you ensuring the data is accurate, for your e-com platform? And are you helping distributors to, there are organizations like IDEA, which, we partner with, but how are you managing data?
Data is critical. Product content in particular, if you got an e-commerce store that doesn't have products on the shelf, it can't sell. And so the industries where we've been the most successful are the industries that have access to a good data model. Partners, for example, like DDS, they're heavily focused in the world of electrical and plumbing, providing good content. In the office products arena, it was a company called Edelweiss that was acquired by GfK and now Nielsen IQ. And they also do IT and consumer electronics content. Having good, searchable, merchandisable content on a site is critical for the site to be successful.
And, you talked about e-com adoption. We talked about how, e-com adoption is happening, right? So, but for Evolution X or for ECI, right? So is there a specific industry you guys are targeting, or where does your e-com fit in really well?
Obviously we've got our history in office products, but I think our growth right now is more in industrial channels, seeing tremendous success in the welding and gas industry because of the partnership that we have with the major ERP system there. Through a company called Computers Unlimited, their ERP system, TIMS, we've been integrated to for years and have seen tremendous success in the welding and gas distributors who've wanted to get online in a serious way, being able to leverage Evolution X paired with TIMS to be able to do that. Things like, gas cylinder tracking capabilities, paying bills online, in addition to just selling hard goods and things of that nature. That's probably been the channel that we've grown in most significantly beyond OP. But right now, our big focuses are electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. It's one of the reasons we're here at NAED today is really learning more about the electrical industry, the opportunities for growth, the right folks to partner with in order to help the distributors in this industry grow.
And what advice would you give for electrical distributors out there or for plumbing, HVAC distributors out there to better sell online?
Well, the key, I think, first is finding the right platform, finding a platform that fits with their corporate goals and one that can integrate well to their ERP system. One of the things I love about the partnership that we've got with DC Cap is the depth of integration that you're capable of doing into many of the ERP systems in the industries that we're targeting. And that data integration is critical. You don't want to have to maintain data in two places. Being able to sync, customer information, whether a customer account is open or not, pricing, getting those orders down into the ERP system quickly, inventory, all of those types of things. You don't want to be maintaining data in two places. It's a recipe for problem, and it just creates double work. And so integration is critical, making sure that the systems that they have will talk effectively with each other.
Commerce, as we speak, is changing in a big way. and especially the way you shop online. There's also a lot of talk about agentic commerce. So how are you seeing all that being adopted into distribution? Are we still not there yet? How far along are we?
We're still in the crawl stage as it relates to, I think, distributors taking advantage of AI. It's obviously a huge focus for us. And proud to say that Evolution X is probably the leading platform within ECI as a whole from the standpoint of execution and implementation of AI. We're hosted with AWS, and we use Amazon Bedrock as the base of our AI implementation and our ability to plug and play LLMs into what we're doing within Evo. And it's neat. And I'm definitely not an AI expert. I'm still in the crawl stage myself, or I feel like I am compared to some of the pundits that I'm listening to. But our ability to target the LLM to the types of data it's most effective with, and whether you're using Claude for writing product descriptions or using Gemini for focusing on sales data or whatever, as each new LLM comes out, you can plug and play, put in a new one to target a specific data set as you find one in the market that becomes better at analyzing certain things. And so, building into Evo the ability to help distributors write product content. In the office products industry, for example, dealers have a lot of private label SKUs that they're having to do their own photography, write their own descriptions. Being able to leverage AI to write better descriptions, turn those descriptions into bulleted sales copy, and implement that quickly and at scale across hundreds or even thousands of SKUs is a huge time saver and just makes for more effective selling content on a site. And so implementing those types of things for the distributor to use, being able to allow a distributor to look at things like churn. We did a live demo looking at a distributor site and just ask the question, what are my customers that are most at risk for churn? And, like an AI, it came back with a couple of AI answers that, the top 2 customers on the list were people who'd only ever purchased once. Well, yeah, they're most likely not to purchase a second time. But, you can immediately ask the AI, can you write an email and create a promotion that I can target those one-time customers to try and make them second-time customers? But the third customer on the list was Dave, who said, hey, Dave normally purchases from you every 4 days, and he hasn't placed an order in the last 29 days. Okay, somebody might need to talk with Dave and find out what's going on. Did Dave go on a long vacation, or has Dave left you as a customer and you need to be chasing him? Looking at fraud risk in orders, analyzing orders in large scale to say, what of these orders that I'm about to place with my wholesaler or with my manufacturers this afternoon are most likely potentially fraud, and screening those out before processing those further and actually experiencing the loss associated with that. There's so many different ways as we've implemented the AI and started to allow our dealers and distributors to play with it. The types of questions that they're asking and trying to get answered is really neat.
These are great use cases, Paul. I love it. So the customers who have churned, okay, Dave usually purchases something, but he's not really done anything for the last 27 days. Let's reach out to him or just give him a call. So there is human intervention there, right? So it's not like an AI is reaching out to them. Okay, I pick up the call, the sales rep, hey, what's really happening, Dave? I think these are some really, really great use cases where it's not just the e-com or it's not just the ERP. The data is obviously integrated. They talk to each other. But then you're able to leverage that data and use AI, leverage the data, and you have actionable insights there. So I think this is great. Actually,
that's really the key. AI can take over repetitive tasks, but there's points where, how do you leverage AI to make your humans more efficient? And, leveraging the data, you've got huge amounts of sales data, you have huge amounts of product data. How do you look at that data, gather insights, and provide those insights to your employees to take action on? And it's those actionable insights that are really, I think, what are exciting as we look at different ways of leveraging AI.
I also want to give a shout out to Dave Bent. Dave, if you're watching this, just want to say hello. And
Absolutely. I had worked with Dave for years in my old role as well. He had become my F1 buddy. He always talked to him about what was going on in the world of Formula One. I actually need to reach out to him about the engine changes for this coming year, get his perspective.
I just watched this movie, Brad Pitt, right? So F1, that was a great movie as well.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to catch it. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
So, Paul, that's a great way to end the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this learning journey. At DCCAP, we love sharing what we learn, and we also make your data flow better. Your ERP is the heart of your operations. DCCAP is the brain. We make sure your data connects seamlessly across all your systems. To know more about us, please visit dccap.com. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any distribution secrets. Catch you on a new episode soon.